Christmas Day celebrations ending in a horrifying fashion in this Pine Hills neighborhood, with a 13-year-old girl dead from a gunshot wound and a 15-year-old boy arrested in connection to her death.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.
On December 25, 2023, a tragedy unfolded on Christmas Day, a day that was meant for family, warmth, and celebration. Instead, it became a day of unspeakable loss. The boy who walked up to deputies in Pine Hills wasn't there to give them answers. He was there to confess to a crime that would forever haunt the community. She was only 13 years old. A life still full of promise, dreams of cheerleading, and the innocence of youth, cut short. By what? A mistake? Or something darker? In this documentary, we will unpack the heartbreaking details of Emily Jackson's death. What was supposed to be a time for family and joy turned into a horrific moment that would tear a family apart. As we peel back the layers of this tragedy, the truth begins to unravel, a truth shrouded in grief, pain, and questions that have no easy answers. This isn't just about an accidental shooting. This is about the lives touched by loss. The family torn apart. The boy whose confession raises more questions than answers. And the dark, complicated road to justice that lies ahead. There are unanswered questions still hanging in the air. The vigil. The moments before the fatal shot. And the deep, unspoken fear of what truly happened that Christmas afternoon. In the coming minutes, you will hear the full story, a tale of family, heartbreak, secrets, and a young life taken far too soon. But remember, this is only the beginning. What truly happened on Christmas Day in Pine Hills is far from what it seems. Emily's life had been filled with unimaginable pain, yet she was a beacon of light in her family. After losing her mother and younger sister, she had learned to cope with the harshness of life. She wanted to make it to high school. She wanted to be a cheerleader. She wanted the future that every 13-year-old dreams of. But that future would never come. But life had not been kind to Emily's family. Grief had been a constant companion, first her mother, then her sister. Tremaine spoke of how the family had tried to keep Emily strong, despite the odds. The vigil became a moment of both reflection and resolution. For Emily's family, it was not just about mourning a young girl's death, but about holding on to the love she had shown them throughout her life. In their eyes, she had become more than just a victim. She had become a symbol of resilience, even in the face of despair. But that symbol of hope had now been extinguished. It was 4:45 p.m. on Christmas Day. A day filled with warmth, laughter, and holiday cheer. But for Emily and the boy involved, something went horribly wrong. A confession was made, but with no witnesses to back it up, the truth remained locked behind a veil of uncertainty. The boy at the center of this tragedy remains unnamed, a juvenile caught in the turmoil of a decision that would forever alter his life. Who was he, and what led to this moment of unimaginable violence? Was this really an accident, or was there something more to the story? The lack of answers left many wondering if the boy had simply been caught up in a situation that spiraled out of control. Was it a case of recklessness, or was it something more premeditated? As time went on, investigators would continue to look for answers, hoping to uncover the truth that still seemed to be just out of reach. What was his state of mind when it happened? What had led to such a violent outcome? These questions would echo through the investigation, as the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fit together. In the days that followed the shooting, the emotional impact on the community was profound. People were left in a state of disbelief, trying to make sense of the tragedy that had struck so suddenly. How could something so devastating happen to a family already so deeply scarred by loss? Emily's family, in particular, struggled to understand how the 15-year-old boy could so easily claim that it had been an accident. Cynthia Williams, Emily's aunt, spoke out with an unmistakable sense of skepticism. For her, the boy's claim of an accidental shooting didn't sit right. The family had already endured so much pain, and now they were being asked to accept that their beloved Emily was gone, her life taken by a simple mistake. It didn't make sense. To Cynthia and the rest of the family, it was unfathomable that a young girl's life could be so easily ended by an accident. The family could not believe it. An accident, they asked. How could a teenager, just 15, accidentally pull the trigger and take a life? To them, justice had to be served, and they were determined to seek it. Emily's family felt the weight of their grief, but they also felt anger and confusion. How could this young boy, someone they didn't know much about, be the one responsible for Emily's death? The suspicion that something more sinister had occurred began to take root. Could it have been a case of misplaced anger, recklessness, or even something deeper? The questions surrounding the shooting only seemed to intensify as time went on, and the answers were nowhere to be found. At the same time, the community was left to reckon with the shock of it all. Pine Hills, a neighborhood known for its tight-knit residents and quiet streets, was shaken to its core. People began to talk, asking each other if they had seen anything, if they had noticed anything strange in the days leading up to the shooting. But no one had. It was as though the tragedy came out of nowhere, leaving everyone in a state of disbelief. The unanswered questions left an emotional void, and the family's insistence on seeking justice became a rallying cry. As the investigation continued, the family's resolve to get to the truth only grew stronger. They would not rest until they knew exactly what had happened to Emily that fateful Christmas day. The investigation moved slowly. In a case like this, the sheriff's office had to tread carefully. With little evidence and only a teenager's confession, they worked to piece together the story. The boy's sudden confession was puzzling. He claimed it was an accident, but how could they know for sure? There were no witnesses to corroborate his story, and the family's distrust of his account made things even more complicated. Law enforcement had to work with what they had, an emotionally charged situation, a grieving family, and a young boy whose motivations remained unclear. The forensic experts looked at the evidence carefully, examining the gun, the trajectory of the bullet, the distance it had traveled. What they found didn't necessarily tell the whole story. Was it truly an accident, or had there been more at play? As the investigation continued, attention began to turn to the mental state of the 15-year-old boy who had confessed to the shooting. Was he truly remorseful, or was this a case of a troubled teenager attempting to escape the growing wrath of the community? Was the boy truly remorseful, or was this just a confession to escape the wrath of the community? Only time, and further investigation, would tell. The boy's confession seemed too clean, too easy. His immediate surrender to law enforcement, walking up to deputies and admitting what he had done, raised questions about his true state of mind. Was he seeking redemption, hoping that by confessing, he could somehow find a way to escape the guilt that had already begun to weigh on him? Or was there a deeper reason for his actions, one that hadn't yet surfaced?
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.
As investigators tried to piece together the boy's motives, they were left with more questions than answers. Was he simply a teenager caught in a tragic accident, or was there something deeper that led him to this moment of violence? In the wake of the shooting, the community of Pine Hills was left reeling. The tragedy struck a nerve in the neighborhood, and the emotional impact rippled through the town. Emily was not just a victim, she was a daughter, a cousin, and a friend, a young girl whose life had been cut short by an event that no one could explain. For the family and close friends who had known her, the shock was unbearable. In Pine Hills, no one was left untouched by the tragedy. But in the search for answers, one thing became clear: the community was divided. As the community tried to come to terms with the loss of a young girl, they also had to face the truth that the boy involved in her death was one of their own. As the investigation continued, the search for answers divided Pine Hills, with some searching for justice, and others for the truth behind the tragedy. The vigil became a symbol of the fight for justice. The community gathered, lighting candles in Emily's honor, their hearts heavy with grief but full of hope for justice. Cynthia Williams, Imani's aunt, spoke through her tears, expressing the pain of losing someone so young. Her voice trembled as she recalled the joy Imani had brought to their lives. She was full of life, Cynthia said. She was always smiling, always dreaming. And now she's gone. Her words echoed through the crowd, resonating with everyone who had gathered to mourn Imani's passing. As the case slowly unfolded, the legal system was left to determine whether the boy's actions were truly accidental or whether this was something far more deliberate. The stakes were high, and the truth remained buried beneath layers of uncertainty. The boy faced the possibility of manslaughter charges. But could the charges go further? Was there enough evidence to show that his actions were more than just reckless? The legal process had just begun, and with each new development, both families, the boys and Imani's, would be forced to confront the consequences of that fateful day. For Imani's family, the pursuit of justice was more than just a legal matter, it was an emotional journey. They wanted answers. They wanted to understand why their 13-year-old daughter, niece, and cousin had been taken from them so suddenly, and they wanted to know whether it was truly an accident or something more intentional. In the midst of their grief, they clung to the hope that the legal system would provide them with some form of closure. As the investigation moved forward, the legal system would be forced to sift through the details of that day, the moments leading up to the shooting, the boy's confession, and the relationships involved. But in the end, the family's quest for justice was not just about finding the truth behind the shooting, it was about finding a way to make sense of the senseless loss of a young life. For Imani's family, the pain of losing her is unbearable. But the trauma for the boy involved, and his family, will also be long-lasting. No one will walk away unscathed. For the boy who had confessed to the shooting, the emotional fallout was equally profound. He was only 15 years old, and his life had already been irrevocably changed by that moment. His confession, whether it was a cry for redemption or simply an attempt to escape the weight of his actions, did little to erase the trauma of what had occurred. He was now a figure marked by guilt, a teenager who would have to live with the consequences of his actions for the rest of his life. As the story of Imani's death slowly moved through the courts and the investigation continued, there remained an overwhelming sense of unfinished business. The truth was still elusive. Was it truly an accident, as the boy had claimed, or had there been something more to the story? The lack of clear answers left a cloud of uncertainty hanging over everything, the family, the community, and the boy himself. As we reflect on this tragedy, one question remains: how could this have been prevented? Was there a turning point, an opportunity to stop it all before it was too late? The answers may never fully come, but the consequences of that Christmas day will last a lifetime. The unanswered questions began to haunt everyone involved. For Imani's family, the desire for justice was intertwined with the need for closure. If it was truly an accident, then they could, perhaps, accept it, but if there was more to the story, if there had been intent behind the shooting, then justice would demand a different kind of reckoning. The family's search for the truth became just as important as the legal process itself. They could not let Imani's death be in vain. The pain of her absence would never go away, but understanding what truly happened that day might provide them with the peace they so desperately needed. As the legal process continued, the community of Pine Hills, too, was left with lingering questions. How could this have happened in their quiet neighborhood? Had they missed the signs of tension between the two teenagers? Had they failed to intervene in some way, to prevent the deadly shooting before it took place? The community's sense of safety and security had been shattered, and the aftermath of the tragedy forced them to reflect on their own role in what had happened. There were no easy answers, no way to undo the damage that had been done. The loss of Imani Nicole Jackson will be felt for a lifetime. The questions remain, the grief endures, and the search for justice continues. In the end, we are left with the undeniable truth that some things, no matter how hard we try, can never be undone. The journey to understand the truth behind her death will continue, but the legacy of Imani's life, the joy she brought to those around her and the dreams she never got to realize, will live on in the hearts of those who loved her.
Welcome to Shocking True Crime. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily updates on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe.